Are we vulnerable right now to 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor style attack?
Yes. And if you go back, Hugh, I did an an interview in the spring of '01. I was asked, I think I ran in a New York magazine, I was asked what was the biggest threat facing the country, and this is a few months before 9/11, and I said, I'm worried about terrorists equipped with weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, biological weapons, or nukes. And then, of course, what happened on 9/11, we had 19 guys with airline tickets and box cutters, and they launched an attack that was worse than Pearl Harbor. It was in the homeland, it took down the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, killed 3,000 of us. Would have taken out the Capitol or the White House if it hadn't been for the courage of the folks on United 93. Now that was, 14 years ago. Things have come a long way since then. And I think the threat level today is greater than it was after 9/11. I think you've got not only the proliferation of Islamic radicalism and extremists, they are now launching attacks into Europe, attacks into the United States. Took down a Russian airliner, 224 people killed over the Sinai. There isn't any geographical limitation on them. Anybody who sits around now and thinks, gee, we're safe behind our oceans and we can turn our back and let somebody else worry about that, forget that. Just ask the folks in San Bernardino if we're immune from those kinds of attacks. Now you can say, well, it was just people armed with rifles and pistols, and they only killed 14 of us. Well, if you start to think about the combination of the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction that's going on now in the Middle East and the proliferation of terrorist organizations, it doesn't take much. If you can get a device on a ship and sail it into the middle of New York Harbor, or put it in a semi and drive it around the Beltway outside Washington, and then all you need is somebody who knows how to set it off and is willing to die for Allah. And that's increasingly possible. So for us to think that somehow we're safer than we were at the time of 9/11, I think the world's a much more dangerous place. I think our adversaries are deadlier. I think they've spread pretty dramatically from a geographical standpoint. I think ISIS is a whole new ballgame, tougher, meaner, more vicious than we had in Al-Qaeda. And people think that that's a one-off event, 9/11 even, or the kinds of things we've seen recently in Paris and here in the United States. They're just wrong. And then Barack Obama, I don't think, understands or pretends not to understand. I spend hours trying to figure out what makes him tick, but it's as though he has a worldview that's different than what most of us hold. And when facts are brought to show that he's wrong, he just ignores those facts and stays right on his set of beliefs. It's okay to do business with the Iranians. They can be trusted. Don't pay any attention to their record of support for terrorism on a global basis.